Hey, Shalom, Makiam, Shalom, Kal Halal, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Akahakudash. We send double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutations to you, Akim, out there pushing the word, sincerity, and truth. This is the brother Ariala. Today, what I want to do is just do a little bit of history on the flood. I just want to give an all around kind of like read and talk about it. This is one example in the scriptures that lets you know that, um, you know, the Bible is true. Not only do you have this flood story that's taught in Hebrew tradition through the scriptures, the flood story is taught by all people, you know, in general. And the reason why is because, through the sons of Noah and through Noah himself, the history of the flood was passed down now through the sons of Japheth and Canaan. You have, it likened with other gods and everything like that. But down through the history of the son Shem, we get the traditional story of what actually happened. Now, we always tell you that when you read in the scriptures, it's from the perspective of the sons of God. It's from the perspective of the Israelites and what happened in and around the Israelites. And you're never going to really get out of that worldview. What I want to do is give you that perspective and talk about it and show you how, as man spread across the world over a dispensation of time, how the story was shifted, but nonetheless, the story is there, okay? One of the things that we have to remember, and I will show a couple of examples here today, is that oral tradition was the primary way of preserving history in the far ancient world. And things wouldn't begin to be categorized and written down until later on. So this is how you can have these stories come about and how it's likened to, other gods and everything like that. And so we always have to make sure to keep that perspective because we have these religions that want to claim to be older and this and that. Well, it was just oral tradition, just like the tradition of the Hebrews was oral tradition around the same time as these other so-called gods and ways. Okay. But what I want to do is just read Genesis, the 7th chapter, and then touch on a few other points, show you a couple of things, and Lord willing, this is edifying. I'm going to start at the top and read down. This is Genesis, the 7th chapter. It says, "And the Lord said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I righteous, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, the male and his female, and other beasts that are not clean by two, the male and his female." Right there, and there's another misconception that the church doesn't teach. As we can see, there were sevens of the clean animals and twos of the unclean animals. Okay? Verse 3, "Of fowls also of the air by sevens, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. For yet 7 days I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And every living substance that I have made will I destroy from off the face of the earth. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of the waters was upon the earth. And Noah went in, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him into the ark because of the waters of the flood." It says, "Of clean beasts of clean beasts and of beasts that are not clean, and of fowls and of everything that creepeth upon the earth, there went in two and two into the ark, unto Noah into the ark, the male and the female, as the Most High had commanded Noah. And it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, 600 years, in the second month, in the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened." Okay, so Noah was 600 years old when he came into the ark. Okay, can you imagine the type of knowledge you would have in 600 years of being a man of the Lord? What type of level you would be on? What type of relationship you would have with the Heavenly Father through experience and time and study? It's no wonder Noah had all the knowledge of these animals everything that he needed to do. He was an aged man, okay? And clearly he was still, in good health. It says, and the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And the selfsame day entered Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with them into the ark. They, and every beast of after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, every bird of every sort. And they went into Noah into the ark, 2 and 2 of all flesh, wherein is the breath of life. Ain't that heavy? All right. So they were just doing as Noah commanded. Noah had commanded through the Spirit, and they all piled in, right? And they went in, and they that went in, male and female of all flesh, as the Most High commanded him. And the Lord shut him in. Okay, the Lord shut him in. And the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased and bare up the ark. And it was lifted up above the earth. And the waters prevailed and were increased greatly upon the earth. And the ark went upon the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth. And all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits upward did the waters prevail. And the mountains were covered. So man, it was so far up that all the mountains of the earth were covered with water. This is the whole face of the earth has changed. As the scripture said, the water came from the deep and it came from the heavens. So the volume, if you look up the term volume, the whole volume of the earth was transformed in over the course of 40 days and 40 nights. What we understand and what we see in this earth, was made. And the nature of the earth changed from the time that Noah was younger. You see that? Okay. It says, and all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle and of beasts and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man. So everything that was not in that ark died. Imagine water coming above the mountaintops. What you gonna do? A bird that can't fly in a circle for 40 days. Through. Okay? It says, all in whose nostrils was the breath of life, and all that was in the dry land died. Okay? Every living substance was destroyed which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle, and creeping things, and the fowls of heaven. They were destroyed from the earth, and Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. The waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. So not only was there flooding for 40 days and 40 nights, it took another 150 days for the waters to subside. The waters prevailed like water world over the whole earth for 150 days. Okay? So imagine being in that situation. Put yourself in the mind with Noah. Take yourself there mentally. Okay? Now, chapter 8, it says, and the Most High remembered Noah and every living thing, and all the cattle that was with him in the ark. And the Most High made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged. The fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained. And the waters returned from off the earth continually, and after the end of the 150 days, the waters were abated. And the ark rested in the 7th month. Right? Check that out. In the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat. And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. And in the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made, and he sent forth a raven, which went forth to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. And he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her feet, and she returned unto him unto the ark, and the waters were on the face of the whole earth. Then he put forth his hand and took her and pulled her into the ark. And he stayed yet another 7 days, And again he sent forth the dove out of the ark, and the dove came to him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth. And he stayed yet another 7 days, and sent forth the dove, which returned not again unto him any more. And it came to pass in the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried up from off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. And in the second month, and in the 7th and 20th day of the month, was the earth dried. And the Most High spake unto Noah, Go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife, and thy sons, and thy sons' wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. And Noah went forth, and his sons and his wife, and his sons' wives with him, every beast and every creeping thing, and every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth, after their kinds, went forth out of the ark. Okay? It says, and then it talks about how he built an altar, and basically, they created a habitation, and they spread and did whatever the Most High told them. But they landed on Arawak, which is over there in Turkey. And this is the story of Noah and how the Most High flooded the earth. And what I want to do is show you some things about other cultures that talked about these things as well, to show you how they line up, and to show you how the Bible is true, man. This is a story that, the people say it's a myth, but no, man. It's true. It happened, and the history of the earth contains it. And it's something that for us to remember and to understand the mind of the Heavenly Father. Okay? Now, I'm pull this video up real quick.
One time, Lord Vishnu transformed into a Matsya, that's a fish, and appeared in front of Manu, the progenitor of all mankind, the son of Lord Brahma, and warned him of a pralay that was going to come. Pralay is a massive deluge, specifically meant to destroy humanity. He warned Manu to build a boat and escape so he could save humanity. For centuries, Hindus have told and retold this story from the Satpatha Brahmana and Matsya Purana, and worshipped Vishnu and Manu for saving us all. This is what I was referring to in the last video when I was talking about the reasons Aryans left their homeland in the first place and came to India. Now I want to expand upon this story from the Matsya Purana and explore to the depths of it. But before that, let me take you to Sumer, which is roughly around modern Iran. In the Sumerian culture, there's been a famous myth that tells about King Ziusudra, who was warned by the gods of an upcoming flood that will destroy the world. He was told to build a ship in which he stayed for 7 days and thus survived the flood and restarted humanity. So, Manu wasn't the only one. Who saved us then? Was it Manu? Or was it Ziusudra? Or was it, and let's not forget him, Noah? In fact, Noah's story is perhaps the most famous of all the flood stories, where Noah escapes the great destructive flood on a boat with all the animals and lands in modern-day Turkey, from where he restarted humanity. But again, these are also not the only ones. Wherever you travel around the world, you come across more and more of such flood myths, which tell of a massive destructive flood that came a long time ago because gods were too angry and wanted to destroy mankind because it had become too sinful or too loud, and gods wanted to purge and clean the world and make a fresh start on their project humanity.
All of these different cultures have a flood story. You see this? This is more proof that, hey, man, this actually happened. And it was passed down. It was passed down through the sons of Noah over time, over centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries, and it went to the direction that it was going to get. And you have to understand, by the time you get to Genesis 10, when you read about the different generations of the sons of Noah, Genesis 10:1. Now these are the generations of the son of Noah: Shem, Ham, Japheth, and unto them were born were sons born of the flood, and it goes into all of these different sons. Verse 5, it says, "By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their islands, and everyone after his tongue, after their families and their nations." All of these things were going down, and it talks about Nimrod. By the time you get to all of these different stories, these different sons, you have all these different stories that came with what? Oral tradition. Okay? Oral tradition. So this is how you get all these varying ways that the flood happened. Okay?
Sounds fair enough. Actually, I'm with them. More so now than ever. But coming back. In their supervillain type destructive plan, the gods save one or two special people who escaped the deluge on a boat, and now we are a result of it. In fact, the oldest of all such flood myths is the Babylonian epic of Gilgamesh, which is at least as old as the 18th century BC. In Greek mythology, Zeus gets angry and decides to end the Bronze Age.
Now, speaking on Gilgamesh, let's pull that up real quick. When you go to Gilgamesh, it's a historical Akkadian / Babylonian king, right? It says Gilgamesh was a major hero in ancient Mesopotamian mythology and the protagonist of the Epic of Gilgamesh, an epic poem written Akkadian during the late 2nd millennium BC. He was also most likely a historical king of the Sumerian city-state of Uruk, and was posthumously deified, right? It says his rule probably would have taken place sometime between 2900 and 2500 BC, though he became a major figure in Sumerian legend during the 3rd dynasty of Ur, circa 2112 to 2004 BC, right? Now you go down to historical king. It says most historians generally agree that Gilgamesh was a historical king of the Sumerian city of Uruk, who probably ruled sometime during the early part of the early dynastic period. Stephanie Daly, a scholar of ancient Near East, states that precise dates cannot be given for the timeline of Gilgamesh, but they are generally agreed to lie between 2800 and 2500 BC. No contemporary mention of Gilgamesh has yet been discovered, right? But in the 1995 discovery of the Tumunu inscription, a 34-line historiographic text written during the reign of Ishbi-Erra, circa 1953 to 1920 BC, has cast considerable light on his reign. The inscription credits Gilgamesh with building the walls of Uruk. Lines 11 through 15 in the inscription read, "For a second time the Tamal fell into ruin. Gilgamesh built the Numumbara of the house of Enlil. Legal, the son of Gilgamesh, made the Tamal preeminent, brought Ninlil to Tamal," right? So, when you look at the timeline, if you just take a little quick look, and Esau don't know the time, and as you can read, as we took that little snip there from Wikipedia, they guessing, they don't know, you know what I mean? Because it was all oral tradition and things wasn't written down until much later. When you look at this timeline, it talks about how the flood here is around 2500 BC, right? All right, and so their guesstimation is that Gilgamesh lived around basically in this time. So it lines right up during the timeline of the flood and coming out of the flood, and one of the sons of Noah, being Gilgamesh, most like one of those sons or sons of Noah being Gilgamesh and rebuilding in the area that he rebuilt. And so he was deified. And it becomes oral tradition and becomes, this thing that creates of itself. Most likely Gilgamesh is just one of Japheth's sons, you know what I mean? one of Shem's sons, one of Canaan's sons, that established, built up, did what they needed to do, and on down the line, there's this deification that happens where they start to worship. Okay, now when you look even into Hinduism, which is considered the oldest religion, right? It's like considered 4,000 years old. You go into the Hindu religion and you hear all this, you know, they want to tell you it's the oldest religion. And again, they don't have the oldest written text. They don't have any of that. It's just oral tradition that's said to have been kept. When in fact, the Bible was originally an oral tradition, so it was around the same time. Okay? The traditions and the mindset and the righteous teachings that Noah was teaching his sons only were held by Shem. And it was passed down through the sons of God, going all the way down to Abraham. All right? Following that line, you know, Elder Yahshua likes to talk about that, all the way down to Jacob. Okay, but now, when you go into, and I'm not going to pretend like I can read all these words, you know, correctly. I'll do my best. You bros can look it up yourself. Now, when you type in Hinduism and just go to Wikipedia, you start at the top real quick. And, yeah, Hinduism is the Indian religion and dharma or way of life, right? It is the world's third largest religion and over 1.25 billion followers, or 15 to 16% of the global population, known as Hindus. All right? The word Hindu is an exonym, and while Hinduism has been called the oldest religion in the world, many practitioners refer to their religion as a Sanatana Dharma, the eternal way, which refers to the idea that its origins lie beyond human history, as revealed in the Hindu texts. Another, though less fitting, self-designation is Vadka Dharma, the Dharma related to the Vedas. Okay? Okay, so let's go to these Hindu texts, get some understanding, right? Now, you go to Hindu texts, you can read all that, get that understanding. I want to skip down and just get to a point real quick. When you go down, it says many ancient, under the history tab, it says many ancient and medieval Hindu texts were composed in Sanskrit. Many others in regional Indian languages. In modern times, most ancient texts have been translated into other Indian languages and some in non-Indian languages. Prior to the start of the Common Era, the Hindu texts were composed orally, then memorized and transmitted orally from one generation to the next for more than a millennia before they were written down into manuscripts. The verbal tradition of preserving and transmitting Hindu texts from one generation to the next continued into the modern era. So when you get these Vedas and the different writings of Hinduism and these other religions, it was put together similarly, where you had oral tradition, poems, and storytelling was the main part of preserving history that was passed down, memorized. And of course, if people are living for hundreds of years, they'll have that down to a T. Okay? It ain't like you were memorizing an Easter poem that you can't even remember 2 days before. It's 2 verses. Jesus wept, and you still couldn't remember it. It ain't like that. When hundreds of years, they had it down to a T. Okay? And so now, from all of these different religions and peoples that came out of Noah is where you get all these different stories. That's where you get all these different religions. It's where you get all these different alternative viewpoints of how the flood went down. Okay? But the one of the things that you have to understand is, number one, oral tradition was the dominant way of storytelling back in those days. So the arguments about when this was written, when that was written, it was oral tradition. People had a different timeline on when they actually had things categorized and written down. Okay? So you can't use when it was written down as an argument of authenticity or originality. Okay? If that makes sense. So that's one thing. And number two, you have to understand the perspective of after Noah and his sons came, then you still had those mindsets that the sons had of teaching other things. And that's what happened. Okay? I'm going to play a little bit more of this and we'll wrap it up.
In China, there's a legend of Fu He, who escaped a great flood on a boat with her husband, 3 sons and 3 daughters and repopulates the earth. Rather disturbing if you think about it deeper. Mayan writings also refer to a flood. My point is, there really must have been a massive flood. While we don't know the details, all the legends of this era, be it Indian, Hebrew, Babylonian, all of them refer in some way, shape, or form to a massive flood, and all of them date around 3000 BC. So, what's really going on here? Why is everyone talking of a flood? How is it possible that so many cultures, completely unconnected to each other, have the same kind of creation myths about angry gods and floods?
Because they are connected. They are connected, and we just read about it there in Genesis 7:8, and touched on it, and also Genesis the 10th chapter. All these sons that came out, all these sons that came out of Noah, they passed it on down. Okay, and so that that's the whole point of it. That's the whole point of it, man. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that, and you know, I was gonna read a few more of the scriptures, but really, that's really the point on that. Lord willing, this was edifying. Please add comments or other scriptures below if you brothers have more points to bring. Lord willing, you brothers can take it and run with it. Call halal Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah Bashem Kodash. Send double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone. Much peace, love, and salutation. See you, Akim, out there pushing the word and sincerity and truth. Shalom.